Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm making budget meals in the Crockpot. I've got a delicious soup that is so rich and creamy. Trust me, you're gonna want to make this. And best of all, I made a big pot of it for less than $4. I'm also making a savory Crockpot chicken dish that is super easy to make, and my costs are coming in at $1.59 per meal. This past summer, one of my friends got me a Target gift card for my birthday, and I was so excited because I had been needing a new crock pot. The one that I used to use ended up it was actually a loaner from one of my family members, and she ended up needing to get that back. And if you guys remember, that was the Nightmare Before Christmas crock pot that I had, and it was always a little too big for me for my purposes. And so I was excited to get this 4.5 quart crock pot, and I think it's going to be the perfect size for my meals. So let's go ahead and get started in the video. My first recipe comes to me from one of my viewers, and it's basically just an expansion on a soup that I already make with evaporated milk, potatoes, and onions. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how beautiful this carrot is? And I know you can't tell how big it is on camera, but it's actually huge. I buy these 5-pound bags of carrots at Sam's Club for $3.26, and this time the carrots were enormous. What makes this soup unique is the egg noodles. So I'm kind of interested to see how this turns out. I'm going to be using some instant mashed potatoes to thicken the soup a bit, but that is purely optional. I chopped everything up, and I didn't use all of the carrot just because I think the recipe just called for 1 carrot, and that carrot honestly was the size of about 2 carrots. So I have 3 to 4 diced potatoes, and I have 2 stalks of celery, about 1/2 of a large onion, and almost all of that very large carrot. In fact, I'm going to hold some of the carrots back, and then I might add those in a little bit later. Then I'm just going to fill it with water, add some salt and pepper, and let this cook for a good long while. And I am kind of starting late in the day. I had to go do some errands this morning, and I got back a little bit later than I wanted to. I've got a lot going on right now, and hopefully next week I'm going to share with you one of my side projects that I've been working on is some redecorating and some upgrades to my tiny little kitchen and some other areas of my home. So hopefully that video will come together next week. And I also wanted to say, if there's ever a time that I'm too busy to release a video, I want you guys to know that you can go to my community tab, and I'll make a notification there that I won't be releasing a video, because I hate to think of you guys just waiting around for me, and then, I just waiting and no video shows up. Anyway, I let this cook for a long time on high. I would say a few hours. And like I said, I got such a late start in the day. I think I started this about 1:30. And I was afraid that it wasn't going to get done. I was so hungry, and this was making my house smell so good. And it's crazy because it's just the onions and celery and carrots and potatoes, but the aroma was just so good. And also, I wanted to say, it's been so long since I've cooked a soup in a crock pot that I forgot how perfectly it cooks your vegetables. Because, I'm usually trying to rush things on the stove because I'm always running out of time. And as you can see there, I had to add a little bit more salt to this dish. My soup is getting very close to being done. The vegetables are almost tender. And now is the time that you're supposed to add in the noodles. And these are egg noodles. Obviously, if you want to do regular noodles, that's fine. I think these are the ones that I got from Dollar Tree. They do have quite a bit of protein in them, but if you're vegan, obviously you might want to swap those out for a different kind. I'm always cautious about adding noodles to soup just because I don't like soggy noodles. However, I do think that they'll add some bulk to the soup, and I don't want to ruin the soup though. So I think a compromise for me is to just add a few in, and then I'm going to see how they do. And then I'm going to cook the rest of them separately. Just because this soup is going to get eaten at different times. I know my viewer said that in her family, they added the noodles and then they just ate the entire soup. But in my family, we're going to be eating this at different times because we all have different work schedules. And so we rarely eat together. And I want these to be leftovers as well. So I just don't think that adding all of the noodles in would work out. And then I'm going to add in about a third of a package of instant potatoes. And these were the baby reds that I just happened to have. I added about a third of a package, and then I'll see how it looks and decide if I want to add some more. I think I'll add just a touch of turmeric to give it a nice color. It's looking a little bland. There, that looks much better. Adding turmeric to soups is a nice little trick just to make it look more appetizing. They use it a lot in chicken noodle soup or broccoli cheese soup just to give it a rich, vibrant color. And if you notice, I did add just a drizzle of oil, which I tend to like in my soups. So in all, I added about half of the bag of instant mashed potatoes. And I thought that this looked perfect. If you want it a little thicker, then obviously you can add the whole bag. Or if you don't have the potatoes, then you can certainly just use cornstarch or use both. It really doesn't matter. But this is exactly the way I like my soup. So I'm going to go ahead and dip up a bowl for myself first. And I haven't added the evaporated milk yet. I'm going to add that to the soup for everyone else. This has so much flavor. The base of this soup, which is celery, onions, and carrots, also known as mirepoix in cooking, where you basically cook those in a little fat before you make a base for lots of different kinds of dishes. It's also referred to as the Holy Trinity of cooking because there is just so much flavor that comes together from that combo or that trio of onions and celery and carrots. It's just delicious. The broth is so rich and tasty. The noodles that were already cooked in there were a little too soft already for me, and they cooked surprisingly quick. So I do like the noodles that I added in later, right before eating it. For me, I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, now let's add in the good stuff. This is the evaporated milk, and I really do love the way evaporated milk tastes in soups. It's just so creamy and so rich tasting. You can make a lot of different delicious soups with a can of evaporated milk. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I used to make a soup of just potatoes, onions, and evaporated milk with lots of salt and pepper, and then maybe serve it with a side of saltines, and that's delicious. You could also cut up some cubes of chicken, and this would make a great chicken soup. You could throw in some Italian sausage if you wanted to. The flavor of this is a bit delicate, but I think that would still work in here. So there's lots of different things. You could even throw in some hamburger. Hamburger actually works really well in soups. Yeah, that is really good. I just love the flavor of evaporated milk in soups, and the recipe did call for 1 entire can with all of the ingredients that I had, but because I took some of my soup out, I wasn't sure how much to add back into this pot. But anyway, I went ahead and packed up the rest of this for my son for his lunch, and my son was playing around with one of the servings of this, and he added some cornstarch and made it a little thicker, and this is what it looks like. He loves to cook as much as I do, so he and I are both always tweaking things a bit, but I thought that turned out really nice looking. All right, it's time for my next recipe. I picked up some chicken breasts at Walmart, and I also picked up a container of chicken broth because I thought, what better for a crock pot than chicken? And also maybe keeping on the theme of potatoes and the vegetables that I have. Because one of the best ways to save money on food is to use your ingredients across several meals. And potatoes and carrots are very inexpensive right now. These chicken breasts are less than $2 a breast, and I can get 2 meals per breast for the next dish that I'm making. And if you're making a soup, you can make 1 breast stretch for 4 people. Obviously, you can get these much cheaper if you purchase them on sale, or you could make this same dish with some drumsticks and it would be even less expensive. I used about half of the chicken broth, but I actually think I could have gotten away with using just a little bit less than I did. I'm going to cook this on low for 7 hours. And actually what I did was I had my son turn this on about 9, and then when I got up at 4 in the morning, this was ready. I had some difficulty trying to figure out how I was going to make this work with filming and then with, my work schedule and everything. I didn't want it to overcook, and that was my only fear, is that maybe 7 hours would be too long in the crock pot. Some things like roasts would be fine to just put it in the morning before I leave, and then it would be nice and tender by the time I got home. But chicken, especially chicken breasts, because they don't have any fat on them, but that is the kind of chicken that my family prefers. So anyway, we're just gonna see how this turned out. I'm gonna use this broth now, add a little extra seasoning to it, and then I'm gonna make a gravy with this to pour over the chicken and the vegetables. And I think normally I would have gone ahead and strained the broth, but I am in a hurry, so I'm just gonna leave it as is, and I think my family will be fine with the little chicken bits. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and I'll make a slurry with it, just adding just a touch of water and stirring that up until it's blended. And I've never used cornstarch in a crock pot before, so I thought I would give it a try. And I'm going to add it in and then let it sit for a little while on high and see if I can get it to thicken. I guess I could have added this in at the beginning. If any of you have any experience using cornstarch to thicken your crockpot dishes, leave me a comment and let me know. And while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and slice up my chicken and plate my meals into the containers. I realized I needed a different knife, and it also looks like I need to cut against the grain a different way. I'm just gonna add as little pressure as possible so I can try to slice these nicely so that it looks good in the container. And a chicken breast is so big, I'm planning to get 2 meals out of this. Now, if you're on a strict budget, you could easily feed 5 people with 2 breasts, and your costs for these dinners would be very low. And I'll go over the prices I paid here in just a minute. You can easily make a vegan option of this by using the plant-based meatballs. You're going to want to brown those first and then put them in the pan along with the vegetables, the carrots, and some vegetable broth. And then you're going to basically do the same thing I'm doing with the gravy, but yours is going to be a vegetable gravy. In fact, I've been thinking about that meal ever since I made this, and so that's probably going to be the next meal I make. I'm definitely in a crock-pot mood, so the ideas for crock-pot meals are kind of stacking up in my head. I'm noticing that my broth is not getting thick, and it might if I left it longer, but I am in a hurry. I do need to get to work, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this along by adding it to the stovetop. And then I'm going to give this a taste to see how it is. And I do think it does need just a touch more salt, because remember, I really didn't add but a tiny amount on the chicken because the broth already does have quite a bit of sodium in it. But I just added a touch more to this, and then I gave it another try. And this is perfectly seasoned. It is delicious. And I ended up giving these dishes to one of my sons for work. Well, actually, I think he had one for work and then he had another one after he got home. He said that it was really good. I asked him if the chicken was overcooked and he said it wasn't. And I did try these vegetables earlier, so I showed you they were perfectly tender. That's one of the things I like about cooking in the crock pot, is that it just makes everything turn out perfectly cooked. And I'm glad to know that 7 hours on low, at least for my crock pot, was doable with these chicken breasts. And I even added a little broth in between the slices of chicken so that when he heated it up, it would all be perfectly seasoned. And like I said earlier, you will probably want to go ahead and use a regular strainer to just strain out the pieces of chicken and the little pieces of chicken fat that are in the gravy. Those little pieces, however, are full of flavor. So it's fine. My family is used to eating this kind of gravy, but that's just one of those things, if I had more time, that I would have done a little bit differently. And then I added some dried parsley to the top, and I just popped these in the fridge for them for later. I love the idea of using this for meal prep, maybe cooking on Sunday, and then, you could serve it on Monday night to your family for dinner. Instead of using potatoes, you could have easily used the egg noodles here from the first recipe. So just a few options for you. And here is my cost breakdown of the food that I purchased. If you wanted to bulk up this meal, then you could always add some bread to the side. And that concludes another video. Let me know if you guys have any great crockpot meals that I should try. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next week.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my own. Even in the darkest times, you give me hope. So